Hey, I'm Nick.
And I'm Makaila.
Welcome to Second Draft Family, a podcast where two millennials talk about raising their blended family while trying not to fuck up their kids in the process. Welcome, everyone. This week we are talking about comparison to other parents, both in real life and online, and just the effect that has on your mental state.
So, to really kick things off, we're going to start with comparison to people we know or just people that we see out in the wild.
Yeah,
So, we do have a couple of friends who have their own kids, but for the most part, people we do know who have kids who are much younger than our kids.
yeah,
So, we're almost the starting point. Like, I'm sure we're setting examples of how not to parent or how to parent to people that we know, but we're also watching them raise their kids, and they're, older and maybe more financially stable than we were when we had kids, and so there is that parent guilt that comes with that.
yeah. I know, like the friends I have with kids, and I know it applies to you too. I was 20 when Tuna was born. I know you were also very young when your kids were born.
Yes.
Glasses, especially. A lot of my other friends who do have kids, obviously, they started later, so they're usually just in a better position, and it always kind of makes me feel crappy 'cause it's like, man, I wish I had been in a better position too because, it makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
And that's always, I think, the worst part because, like, eh, if you're out at, like, a restaurant or a grocery store and a kid starts acting up, most of the time, I don't feel comparison there because, oh, I've been there. I remember when Tuna was little and had a meltdown in the grocery store. It's like, "Oh, man, I feel that." And I know childless people might just see that and react with annoyance, but, I feel like once you've been there, you kinda know it's like sometimes, like, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
But, like, when it's your friends and you have that more exposure, I think it's a lot harder. It's so and I think it goes back to, like, that psychology of, like, keeping up with the Joneses that everyone has. That's something that's been around for decades and decades and probably even further back just under, like, a different name or something. And I know a lot of times that, keeping up with the Joneses always refers to people's house and cars and stuff, but I think it applies to kids too. It's like, oh man, are their kids quote unquote better than ours? Like, have they done something right that we haven't?
Right. I definitely agree with that. And I think too, you're saying seeing someone that you know personally, that really, I think, impacts your comparison more. But I think sometimes too, seeing events we go to with the kids, like maybe at school or for a sport or sometimes, things like that, it's not even necessarily that I'm judging the kid. Like the parent will say something to their child, and it almost makes me feel like, well, I've never said that to our kids, so like, let me pat myself on the back there for a second. But then conversely, you don't know at the end of the day anything about that family really. And maybe that kid has been giving their mom an attitude all day and she just, reached her breaking point and we caught her in a moment where maybe she wouldn't act like that under normal circumstances and she just didn't handle that well.
Yeah. No, that's fair because we're all human and no one knows what everyone else is going through. But, like, I know exactly what you mean because we can be out in the neighborhood or at, like you said, at any of the kids' sport or school events. And if some kid acts like a little hellion, my first thought's going to be like, oh God, where's your parent? What are they doing? And, like, that kid could just be lashing out because they've had a bad day or something. Like, I
Right,
feel
it
like
could be a
comparison.
neurodivergence even. Like,
Right, it could be a million things, and I just feel like it's so easy, and maybe it's a side effect of just like the social media and the kind of society we're in to immediately draw judgment and be like, oh well, I'm certainly a better parent than that kid's parent or something.
Right. And I think too, we're talking about comparing ourselves to other parents. Like, I want to make sure that that's clear to anybody listening. We, I think, have done a pretty good job. I mean, nothing comes to mind that I can think of. If it has happened, it hasn't been something that we've been like actively aware of, but we do a good job at like not comparing our kids. Like, why can't you be like so and so? Like, when you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think we've done a really good job at not doing that. So this episode is focusing on our comparison to other parents.
Yeah, don't 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 ever tell your kids, "Why can't you be like so and so?" That's a
Right.
real good way to screw them up.
Yeah, that gives them a definite complex. So that is not what this episode is about. So I just want to like make that little disclaimer. We are not talking about comparing your kids to other kids. This is strictly an us thing.
Well, and I know just for myself too, if it's the sort of thing where some other kid has better grades or performs better at sports than one of our kids, I'm not judging our kid. I'm beating myself up about it, but that
Right.
that probably says something more about me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What did I do wrong? Right. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, and I feel like because we live in such a digital age, but when it's people you know and friends and we go to their house, I feel like it's not as bad and you can usually rationalize it a lot quicker because in private, I'll talk to my friends and then they'll be like, you know what we're struggling with like this and it helps kind of ground you in that well they're also having problems like it's not
Right.
perfect. They might just be facing a different challenge than I had.
Yeah.
And that perspective is so important because without that reminder that things aren't perfect, it's really easy to just like beat yourself up.
We have never gone to our friends who are quite literally like raising babies and toddlers and said, well, here's what you should do. And they have also not seen us having, moments with tweens and teens and said, well, have you tried doing this? We've all kind of stayed in our lane for parenting. And I think that also helps with the comparison.
Yeah, it does. I think that big gap definitely because no one's it'd be like comparing apples to oranges. So you're right. That probably does help. I guess that kind of brings us to our next topic because we started with the people in your circle, which is easier to see, but also see like the cracks. But then and it really started with our generation being the kids who grew up with the internet is like how parenting has become such a hot button topic on social media.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even us doing like a parenting podcast, I think that's something that we definitely wanted to stay away from was we are not giving advice. We are not telling you how to parent. Do not compare yourselves to us.
Right, we're just trying this is supposed to be just like funny experiences and
Just
like
life.
yeah, just life, but there's because I know like you've gone on stepmom groups
And
with
gotten quickly off because holy shit.
right. And me being on groups for tuna having diabetes and parenting groups that focus on that. And that's usually not as bad, but going on TikTok and if you ever stumble upon freaking crunchy moms on TikTok or almost like any parenting subgroup, it becomes so much worse and so much more negative, I think, for the most part. There are definitely exceptions, but everything is so negative because people want to go on there and complain about well if you're why are you raising your kids this way, it's
You say
wrong.
complain, it's judge. It's judgment.
It's well it is because like well the tone of it all whether it's crunchy moms or vegan moms or especially like these uber religious parents, it's like if you're not raising your kids this way you're wrong. I am raising productive members of society and you are raising trash. Am I wrong?
No, you're definitely not. And I think, especially, and not to diminish your experiences, but as a mom, especially, I think social media has it started as like very detrimental to me, especially starting out as a first time mom when I was. The constant, well, if you don't breastfeed your baby, you're a piece of shit. Or like you have to use organic materials. Your children need to like have carrots that you picked from your garden this morning, and don't you dare go to the store. Like, you're not using cloth diapers. Are you a monster? And it's like, I
You
know,
let your child have fast food, I hope they get taken away from you, like that sort of
yeah,
shit,
like
yeah.
it's actually it is dog eat dog for moms. And I know like dads can experience that too, but I think just it is so much worse from the mom standpoint. Like, women are mean.
You guys are, like, mean to each other. I'm glad there's kind of a push to change that.
Yeah, but that's like I was on a bunch of mommy groups when I was first starting out, and I think, gosh, when I had Yorkie, I kind of just decided like I'm not cut out for these groups. Like, they're making me feel a lot worse than I already am, and they're not helpful. But I think too that sometimes there are those content creators that I think can be helpful. And like one of those people is the Billy the Do Better. Have you seen those videos? I think I've shown you a few.
You've sent me some of his video.
That's true. I think for the most part, his videos, and it's not like I have never felt called out because I absolutely have. But I think that it's done in such a way that it's not like I'm the perfect dad and you're a piece of shit. It's like there are things that you may do that you're not even aware of as a parent. And like, I'm going to bring awareness to that. And like, if it speaks to you to change it. But like these are my kids and this is what I do, and not every kid is the same. But as a general guideline, like there are some things parents do that are shitty, and maybe occasionally they should be called out for them. Not like oh, you didn't let your kid stay out until 10 p.m. like you're a monster, but just you didn't treat your teenager like a person, you treated them like a piece of property, and like maybe sit with that for a minute.
Yeah, I know I'm guilty of you sending me the videos of, like, this Billy Do Better guy or those Instagram posts from that journal page, and I'll be like, "Oh, what am I doing wrong? What does Beeb want me to change?"
Right, and like I don't even mean it like that. Half of the time I'm sending you those things because I saw them and it made me think of like my own parenting, and I'm like, "Oh, you know who would find this interesting?" But then it's you're like, "Oh my god, like I am a screw up." And I'm like, I disagree. I don't think you're a terrible dad, but like if you watch these videos and you feel called out by them, then like maybe explore if there are changes you should make. But I never send them to you with the intent of like, you need to stop.
I know. And it's just it's so much worse though, because there are those helpful content creators like that where like the goal is like, hey, we're all human and you have to remember that and treat your kids accordingly, or you should take this approach because you don't want to damage your kids'
Mm-hmm.
emotional, mental well-being. But a lot of them aren't.
But yeah, so many of them are toxic.
Oh, right. Well, and it's the same problem with everything on social media is like unlike your friends where you can see them and see when they're having a bad day or they might confide in you like, "Man, I'm struggling with this." You're only seeing what they approve of. You're only seeing what they want out there. It's like an advertisement for their life. Like the mom pages are only going to show photos of their house that look pristine and like this is the image they want out there, and people forget all the time, like with everything in social media, that that's not real.
Right.
You're selling this almost.
Yeah. And I think too, so one of my friends, she studied family and like child therapy. That was her specialty for
Yeah.
psychology in college. And so she bestowed this wisdom of, on a day that I was like venting to her about the kids. And it's like, I see all of these other people who just seem like they have their shit together. And, she was like, well, it's kind of like Bluey if you think about it. Everyone wants to be Bandit. Everyone can look at Bandit and be like, man, I wish I was that kind of parent. However, like, not every child is Bluey, and you can only be Bandit if your child is Bluey. And it's like, if this was real life, you're not going to respond to those things exactly as Bandit would, because your child is not going to behave exactly as this like lovable character is. That's not reality. Your children are real, and like they will make mistakes, and they will say things that don't make sense, and they will upset you. And it's like you can only be this perfect parent in this world where you have perfect children.
Right. Bandit and Chili only screw up when it is a plot point. If it is pivotal to whatever the little story they're telling in 8 minutes is. Otherwise, they're good examples to follow. They're generally portrayed as really good parents, but you like again it's not real. It's like the social media feed. It's not real, but it is a well-intended message, but, like, yeah, not every kid is gonna be Bluey or Bingo, and you can't hold yourself to an impossible standard either. Not like I have to talk about, like, being held to impossible standards to you. Women have been going through that forever with everything anyway. But where was I going with that?
The patriarchy. No, just
Well, yeah, no, what always would get me is, and this would go back to even when Tuna was little, Facebook discourse, people would always talk about how like, oh, well, kids today are awful because they don't get spanked or they don't get disciplined. And you know who would always be the most like pro spank your kids?
hmm.
People who didn't have any. And I'm serious. The people who were always like, well, it's because like people don't spank their kids anymore. It was one of them I think was like a teacher I had in high school who just never got married, never had kids, and it's like I understand that you teach high school students, but like what makes you the expert on how to discipline small children? Or worse than that, because they at least have experience with adolescents, just people who I went to high school with who just never had kids. And it's like, what the fuck do you know?
Yeah, like, oh, your kid's misbehaving. Have you tried beating them? Like, just
Right. This uneducated, inexperienced opinion from someone who has no stake in the game to begin with. And it's like, man,
right.
fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I got that from my dad a lot too. When the kids were younger, it was kind of just like, "Oh, well, you don't spank them." And it's like, "Dude, you literally did that until I was almost 17." I did not turn out to be a well-adjusted adult because you used physical punishment. That was not like a pat yourself on the back moment.
Well,
So,
and
like,
so many of those people who say I got spanked and I turned out fine, the longer you talk to them, it's very evident they did not turn out fine.
no, it is crystal clear because they will justify it until they're blue in the face, and it's like, honey, are you okay?
Right. Something like there's other things wrong there. It's like, but did you?
Right?
Did you?
Yeah. But yeah,
The reason nature versus nurture is always discussed and always the answer is, oh, it's kind of both. And people just don't care. When a kid is born, they are already a random mosaic made of genetic traits going back way further than we can comprehend. They already have predispositions. They already might have chemical or hormonal imbalances or things that they are more likely or more apt to do, and you just have to try and steer the ship because they are certainly going to be impacted by how you raise them, and you can certainly damage them or help them, but there are certain things that even when they were born, they were never going to be cut out for certain things, or they were going to be more suited to certain things, and that's like behavior and skills and natural talents. Like you can't like there's not everyone is this uniform nail that needs to be hammered into the wood of society.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, along with that too, like, I think the whole nature versus nurture thing in terms of, comparing yourself to other parents is that, like you said, like, there are so many different factors that make up each individual child. And even if you did something exactly the way is, like, quote unquote, the perfect parent, those things could actually work against you for your particular child. I look at my dad and my baby brother, right? Who's not a baby, but he'll always be my baby brother. Like,
That is a grown man.
he's a grown ass man, but he'll always be my baby brother. But if you look at him, you could say, well, your dad did a really good job raising him. My dad didn't necessarily change anything that he did, although I still would argue that he did. He raised my brother different than he raised me. And that is to say, though, a lot of those core traits were still there as the type of parenting that he does. And I know this because of the conversations I have with my brother. Some of those things worked on my brother. My dad and I don't talk. So, like, you are not always going to have, like, even doing exactly what you think you should be doing at every single opportunity. That does not mean that your children are going to all come out the same. You are not solely responsible for the type of person that they turn into.
Right. Like there's just a lot of factors that are predetermined, or, even if they're not predetermined, you might have an uphill, quote unquote, uphill battle against. Like you can't force it. And I know, like, this kind of goes into other cultures too, because if you see like a comedian, with like a Chinese comedian, one of the most common jokes that I'll hear is how disappointed their parents are that they're not a doctor or lawyer, because isn't that's pushed a lot in that culture.
Yeah, I think that's like Asian culture in general. Like a lot of Asian comedians will make that like part of their routine.
Yeah, and so, you can push certain kids as hard as you want, and it might work for some of them, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Along with that, we can move on to our final topic for this episode, which is that, they say comparison is the thief of joy.
Who's
And it
they?
really is. Like, that is an expression, and it's a damn good one.
It is, because almost never compare yourself favorably unless you're just full of pride and ego. And I know people who are.
Oh, yeah.
So, maybe for them it's like a deliverer of joy, but like it's so fruitless, because at the end of the day, it's not even about them. It's just how you feel about yourself.
Right. And when you get lost, or I guess get too lost in that comparison, you lose sight of, like, literally your parenting. You're trying so hard to be what you think you should be. You're trying so hard to not do anything wrong. And, like, I speak for myself when I say that. And it's like everyone else you have no idea what they're dealing with. And so you can only focus on your life, and you should not be living your life according to someone else's standards. Like, yes, you are going to make mistakes. Yes, your kids might need therapy when they're adults. Hopefully it's not the, extensive, like, you fucked up, but like, you will make mistakes. There are going to be things outside of your control, but you should not be so focused on someone else's life that you are not living yours. I don't
Yeah.
know. Did that make any sense, or was I just rambling?
No, it made sense. To your point, is that there's no single person out there who is not dealing with their own struggle in some way when it comes to raising kids and having some sort of baggage to do that. They just might even be better at hiding it, or they don't broadcast it everywhere, or pretend it's not there, but internally and behind closed doors you don't know what's happening. Everyone, like, parenting is hard, and that's one of the only things that, amidst all of these parenting groups, is about maybe the one thing that's universally accepted as a truth.
Maybe. You haven't been in enough mommy groups, I think.
Right, it's just so
Have you
easy and
actually
natural for them.
tried?
Right, it's not hard, you're just bad at it.
Right. No, that's I wish I was kidding.
Yeah, I'm trying to be the optimist here and give people credit. You're like, nope, usually it's the other way around.
Really. I've been hurt. No, but yeah, it's like I think about all of the quote unquote baggage that I have brought into parenting and, being a parent too young. Really, like I don't want to say that because I know like some people get pregnant even as teenagers and they end up doing an incredible job, not without its own struggles. But like I know there are going to be things that if these kids do have kids of their own, they're going to want to do differently. Or, my parents did this and I don't want to do that to my kids. And I feel like I have done a phenomenal job compared to my parents. However, I do not expect that there will not be things that I have messed up. Like my kids may be adults and be like, I didn't really like this. So I'm not going to do that to my kids. Like they're going to have things that they may have to like quote unquote like what's the word I'm trying to say? Like that you say like generational curses sort of thing. That
Yeah.
could still move on to be things that will affect the way that our kids parent. And you can only just hope that you're doing the best you can, I guess.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up this episode. Hopefully, if anything about all this comparison talk, maybe it makes you feel better that no one's got it figured out. We're all kind of just winging it, despite what Crunchy Mom for Life on TikTok. So that might actually be a real person. I don't know if it is.
I'm
Don't
sure it is.
look them up. That is just bullshit I made up. But anyway, join us next week. We're going to be talking about with our teens and tweens, kind of just our thoughts and anticipations on them becoming adults and what we think that next phase of all of our lives is going to look like.
Yeah. Should be fun.
See you next week.
Bye. Well, that was something. If you liked what you heard, please tell your friends and follow our social media. We're at Second Draft Family on TikTok, Insta, and Facebook, and at Second Draft Fam Pod on Blue Sky. See you next time. Bye.